They say don't meet your heroes, but if you believe that, you're probably idolizing the wrong heroes. Like for me, this is the hero and I'm meeting it today. This is the Diablo, the car that introduced me to the word Lamborghini. This is the car that I had on my room as a poster. I don't think they make it like this anymore. I don't even think many kids have posters like this anymore, because you see, Lamborghini has improved through the years. They have been making more aerodynamic cars than the likes that you see here. You also have the Murcielago right here. I never saw that car in the flesh. I only played it on video games. And speaking of video games, there were some cars like this which are probably not even featured in too many video games. This is the Revuelto, the car that would have been the ideal daily driver for Batman. And then this is the Veneno, the car that literally told me today what going weak in the knees feels like. And then there's the Centenario, the Cyan, and then the blast from the past, the Lamborghini Countach. Again, the first time I'm actually seeing it in flesh and metal, and it looks beautiful. And speaking of Countach, this is the original Countach. I mean, look at the form. Even today, even in the latest of Lamborghinis, you'll still see a bit of this DNA, a bit of this form. A Bertone classic, but organic forms. This is what defines Lamborghini. Even though you see a bit of Countach in every new Lamborghini, the Miura is the one that will go any petrol head weak in the knees. I mean, just look at the flow, just look at the form, just look at those lines. I can go on and on. The car is simply beautiful. Now, what is common for all of these cars apart from that badge on the hood? Well, it's what's under the hood, or rather, behind the car. Is this a V12 engine? And guess what? Even right now, in 2024, the V12 lives on. In fact, today, what we are going to be driving is their latest offering in the V12 space. Take a look. It not only lives on, it's a new generation of it. Ah, listen to that. Just listen to that. You know, I was worried with the green nannies controlling everything that's coming out of those pipes these days. You know, CO2 emissions, soundtrack, emotions, crackles and pops. I thought it's going to go missing. But I'm happy to report, even in 2024, this car sounds brilliant. You know, Lamborghini is doing a favor to the onlookers. They haven't bothered putting a cover on top of that engine, so the onlookers can ogle at the magnificence of that V12. And then, on the move, the onlookers can not only hear the amazing exhaust note, they can also hear all the mechanical symphony. It was something that was only saved for the driver, for the occupants of the car in the previous iterations. Here, even the entire world can listen, not just the engine, but also all the mechanical sounds that are associated with it. In fact, the car actually sounds much louder on the outside than on the inside. I don't know what do you think about that, but essentially, it's just spreading happiness wherever it's going. That's the way I look at it. Honestly, it will not even wake up the neighborhood all the time, because more often than not, the Revuelto starts off in a pure EV mode. No, don't rewind. I did say pure EV mode because you see, there is actually a battery. And then once you're out of the town, or if you want to wake your neighbors and the neighborhood anyway, oh, you can do that too. And boy, the way it wakes up from that EV mode, it's like, you know, it's a bit of a disagreement, a disgruntled engine that, wow, you were driving in EV mode all this while? Let me remind you what petrol feels like, and it wakes up with that growl. Oh, that feeling. Oh my God, that feeling is something that you need to experience from inside the cabin, preferably from behind the wheel. It can take you aback. Happened to me. You don't need a wind tunnel to know that this car is a typical Lamborghini. The slippery shape right from the head to the toe is evident the moment you look at the car. Of course, it's not as radical, it's not as menacing to look at like some of the previous Lamborghinis, but all those design details borrowed from the design language established by the Terzo Millennio, it stands out so nicely, especially these lights. It's got a very refined face to it, but at the same time, it reminds you it's still a Lamborghini. There's still a lot of power in that engine. Being the flagship Lamborghini, of course, there is a mix of tradition and innovation. Some of the sharp lines that you see converging to the face, some of it is, of course, tradition to ensure that even from a distance, silhouette, front, whatever angle you look at it from, it still comes across as a typical Lamborghini. So some of that is tradition, but a lot more is to do with function. Like all these vents that you see here, they are cooling the engine. They are feeding air to the engine, not just for the intake, but also for cooling it down. It's a beast after all. Then you have vents on the top. In fact, the engine is exposed, right? We mentioned. And again, a bit of that tradition also follows with this, the scissor doors. Like I've said before, if it ain't got scissor doors, it's not the right Lamborghini. Opening the scissor doors reveals a carbon fiber tub forming the passenger cell, an evolution of the Aventador, but 10% lighter and with improved torsional rigidity. The entire frontal structure, including the impact zones, are now fully carbon fiber too, replacing the aluminum elements. It contributes to a 20% weight reduction at the front and compensates for the 2 electric motors at the front wheels, while maintaining similar levels of crash safety protection. You see, with the Aventador, it was sort of imperative that you also buy something like, say, an Audi Q7, not because of the Audi-Lamborghini connection, but because there's simply no space in the Aventador apart from you and your co-passenger. Your bags, golf bags, even biscuits and water bottles had no space in there. You always needed another car to carry it for you wherever you went. They fixed that with the new one. There is in fact space. There's a frunk there to keep your kid's school bag, maybe a small bag, even go to the shops and do your grocery shopping. So in that sense, it's a lot more practical now. Inside, the cabin is a blend of familiar and new age tech elements and looks fantastic. It's got all the familiar elements: a fighter jet style cover for the starter button, floating vertical instrument panel that looks like it came from a Ducati Desert X, and a roundish steering wheel. Yes, even in 2024. With rotary switches and knobs to cycle through various modes and functions. Then there are the new age features. There's a slim passenger screen so you don't have to do the old neck twist to check the speed. The Revuelto looks fast even when parked, and the view of the V12 banks in your rearview mirrors always adds to the sense of drama. Speaking of speed and drama, the new V12 is lighter than the Aventador's engine. So you may have noticed that usually when there is a new model that Lamborghini launches, especially in its sports car realm, not so much the Urus, etc., but they will always add numericals towards the end, right? For example, when the Aventador came out, LP700-4, which loosely translates to a longitudinally mounted engine at the back, posterior, putting out close to 700 PS with all-wheel drive. Those kind of prefixes, suffixes, nomenclatures is not there on the Revuelto. The Revuelto only has Revuelto written on the side with 2 horns, of course. So why is that? Because in theory, the power figures, the power output that you're playing with keeps changing. So why have they done that? That's because there is an engine and there are 3 electric motors. So you have a power output of between 800 PS to over 1000 PS when those electric motors come into play. It's a hybrid system. So the combined output is 1015 PS to be exact. That's a lot, right? Of course, if you've experienced what Lamborghini's V12s feel like, you would expect a V12 from Lamborghini putting up 1000 horsepower is going to be absolutely manic, right? It is. It definitely is. But in today's times of advanced electronics, it's a lot more measured and in a good way. It doesn't kill your fun in any way, but it's a lot manageable. So you can literally flirt with those 1,000 horses. And the way it does that, it's just amazing. Because you see, the 4 in those previous names stood for all-wheel drive. They still have an all-wheel drive, but now even the all-wheel drive system is hybrid. So essentially, there are 2 motors in the front that are literally ensuring that you get fast, grippy corner exits, while the big engine and an extra motor is helping you with the rear wheel drive. So what you get is an all-wheel drive system which, unlike any previous Lamborghini, doesn't feel understeery at all. In fact, the agility, whoa, the nimbleness of this thing, oh my God. Even on such tight, winding roads is simply amazing. You don't need to be on a racetrack to really enjoy this car. Okay, let's be honest, Lamborghinis, they're great on the racetrack, but at the same time, Lamborghinis have never been about chasing lap times, about improving each and every millisecond, right? They've always been about that driving fun. So here, that driving fun is enhanced a lot more. And whether you take it to the track or enjoy it around winding roads, which is going to be most of the life for this car, you are going to have a blast. Oh my God, this is a riot. This thing is a riot. They've even improved the steering system compared to the Aventador. It feels a lot more responsive. Remember again, there are motors in the front which have a bearing on how the steering feels. So irrespective of whatever driving mode you are in, that steering feels ultra responsive and never overwhelming. The other favor that Lamborghini has done to the onlookers, this time maybe for people following the Revuelto in their car, is they've placed the exhaust much higher. You can literally see the valves opening. That's if you can keep up. And if you do keep up, those big tires are in all likelihood going to throw so many pebbles or literally fire so many pebbles at your windscreen, you're going to need a new windscreen if you try to keep up with this car. The other brilliant bit is you also do not understand when the handover is happening between the electric motors and the petrol powertrain, between the electric brakes and the physical brakes, etc. All these handovers are nicely masked. It's just brilliant. It's just too good. Now, the Aventador also felt heavy. There was always that V12 pushing you from the back. You could feel that momentum, especially when braking from high triple-digit speeds, going fast into corners. You could feel all that weight. It made the Huracan, the Gallardos feel a lot more manageable, a lot more easy to live with. But this morning, we drove the Huracan Technica, and then I got behind the wheel of the Revuelto, and the Revuelto actually feels friendlier. The new 8-speed dual-clutch transmission gets the engine and rear electric motor to sing in perfect harmony. The Aventador's ISR transmission was dramatic, literally jolting your brain with every shift. The Revuelto's gear shifts, on the other hand, are smoother, almost luxury car-like. The steering is a marked improvement too, no longer requiring you to muscle it around like an Aventador. Though I must say, I kind of miss that wrestling match. The Huracan Technica and the STO might still have the upper hand in the steering feel, in my opinion. It actually feels like the easier car to drive, and that's saying something. It just doesn't feel heavy. It's 1700 something. It doesn't feel like it at all. There's a running joke that Audi and Lamborghini meetings happen more often in Ingolstadt than in Sant'Agata Bolognese, because Italian roads are as bumpy as a teenager's first shave. Yet the Revuelto handles it all with aplomb, thanks to a completely customizable suspension setup. 3 electric motors, a battery pack, and that big engine, and still it just feels nice and light. It doesn't feel as much work as, say, a Huracan, and certainly not as much as an Aventador. Now, some of you may like it, some of you may not like that feeling, but I think honestly most people are going to enjoy how practical in relative terms this supercar feels. It's simply amazing. In conclusion, it just feels like a refined Diablo, and I don't mean the car that we started this story with. Diablo in Spanish translates to the devil, the beast, which it still is, but it's just more refined, more suave in its approach. It's the son of the bully, still has all of those traits, but it went to Harvard. It's a bit of that. It's something that the Diablo, the Murcielago, and of course even the Aventador are going to be proud of. Oof, what a car. What a car. I'm so glad the V12 lives on to make another generation happy, to make another generation of dreamers. This is what dream cars are made of.